Ladies and gentlemen, once again, welcome to the 15th Anniversary World Food Prize Award Ceremony. We are very pleased that you've chosen to share this special time of the year with us when the World Food Prize is presented in Des Moines, Iowa. The ceremony starts now. Please take your seats. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, Pulitzer Prize winner and member of the World Food Prize Council of Advisors, Michael Gardner.
As a former journalist, I'm always interested in a good story. The World Food Prize is, in fact, two great stories. On the one hand, the World Food Prize is about the ongoing struggle to alleviate the plight of the more than 800 million malnourished people in the world. On the other hand, it is a story of two men in Iowa who started out in small towns during the Depression. This is their story.
At a press conference in White Plains, New York this week, a unique worldwide search was announced. Who did the most to help feed the world's ever-expanding population? The General Foods World Food Prize will be worth $200,000.
And thus, in 1986, the World Food Prize was born. The prize was first awarded in 1987 to Dr. M.S. Swaminathan for his critical role in spreading the Green Revolution in India through the introduction of high-yielding wheat and rice. Since then, laureates have been recognized from a wide array of countries.
But none of this would have happened if it weren't for the efforts of Nobel laureate Dr. Norman E. Borlaug and businessman and philanthropist John Ruan.
Dr. Borlaug's distinguished scientific career led him to extraordinary achievements in increasing wheat yields.
In his hands, the wheat crop increased from 11 million tons to 60 million tons annually.
That's right. His name is Norman Borlaug, by the way, and he won the Nobel Peace Prize in 1970. Then Norman Borlaug comes along. See, the problem was that wheat is top-heavy. It was falling over on itself, and it took up too much space. The dwarf wheat. Guys, it was an agricultural revolution that was credited with saving 1 billion lives.
But even after the World Food Prize was created, it was nearly lost in the early 90s when its original sponsor withdrew. It was then that John Ruan stepped forward to rescue the prize.
John Ruan spent his early years in Beacon, Iowa, and later he attended Iowa State University. That was the beginning of a trucking, banking, insurance, and real estate enterprise of national proportions.
I pledge my own energies and resources to these real-life heroes, whose work not only touches the soil, but also touches the hearts of all mankind.
The foundation is also committed to the future. To this end, the World Food Prize Youth Institute was created in 1994. During 3 days each fall, high school students are provided a unique educational opportunity and forum. The foundation sponsors the annual World Food Prize Symposium. World leaders in agriculture and related fields are invited to Des Moines to present and discuss issues ranging from the spread of urbanization to the importance of rural infrastructure.
Finally this evening, our Persons of the Week. Two men we choose this week who are out in the American heartland tonight, being honored for their dedication to so many other people.
And the best and the brightest in agriculture were in Des Moines, Iowa this afternoon to award the World Food Prize. It was given, of course, to Dr. Beachel and Dr. Cush.
And one good word is bread for 1,000.
Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for that wonderful...
Is by standing on the shoulders of giants.
Former President Jimmy Carter.
The World Food Prize, I think, does do all three of these things: recognize achievement, inspire others to do greater work, and acquaint the public with the importance of providing high-quality food to people who are now in need of adequate nutrition.
Somebody we admire greatly, Ambassador Richard Holbrooke.
The scientists who we honor today, and the people who have received this award before, and the people who work without such recognition, are the real heroes of development.
Their accomplishments, a diverse array of breakthrough achievements, include the development of miracle rice in the Philippines, doubling the world's rice production, the establishment of microcredit enterprises in Bangladesh that enabled women to rise out of poverty, the development of high-protein maize in Mexico to counter chronic malnutrition in children, the eradication of cattle plague and crop pestilence in Africa, and implementing the policy framework which moved China towards self-sufficiency in basic food. The World Food Prize sees itself as a partner in the great global effort articulated by the leaders of the world during the United Nations Millennium Summit to eliminate the contrast between abundance and want. and to turn poverty into prosperity, sorrow into joy, and pain into promise.
And such is the story of the World Food Prize and the two men who made it happen.
Such is spirit, such is love.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the President of the World Food Prize Foundation, Ambassador Kenneth M. Quinn.
Thank you very much for that very nice welcome, and I can't tell you how it makes my heart feel glad to see so many people here tonight to honor greats in world agriculture. Maestro Joseph Giunta and the Des Moines Symphony and the World Food Prize Herald Trumpeters have just magnificently summoned the heroes. And I was very moved as I heard that, and the World Food Prize feels so fortunate to be associated with such a wonderful organization as the Des Moines Symphony Orchestra. Would you join with me one more time? And to show you the power of the Des Moines Symphony Orchestra, they've summoned the heroes, and the heroes are here. And I want to introduce just a few of those heroes to you. Some of them you just saw their pictures in that video, the World Food Prize laureates. Could I ask them who are here to stand, please, and would you welcome them with me? But we have other heroes here tonight, too. Senator Chuck Grassley, Congressman Greg Gansky, Congressman Leonard Boswell. We're so glad that you're here with us, and I know everybody here joins with me in saying how proud we are of you, and as you face these new threats that our country must deal with, and every one of us are thinking of you and praying for you. And we're so grateful for what you do. Would you please stand up and be recognized? The World Food Prize has other heroes here tonight. Members of the Iowa State Legislature, Senate President Mary Kramer, Senate Minority Leader Mike Gronstall, House Minority Leader Dick Myers, and the World Food Prize wouldn't be what it is today without the wonderful and steady support of the state legislature and the executive branch. And we have also many of the state elected officials who are here and members of state government. Could you please all stand up so we could thank you properly for all the wonderful support you provide us? All of you stand. Thank you. And we receive tremendous support from the City of Des Moines, from Polk County, from Mayor Preston Daniels, the members of the Polk County Board of Supervisors, and for those representatives who are here tonight, would you please stand so we could thank you properly as well. And finally, the World Food Prize has one other hero, and this is a family that are heroes to us, because when the Food Prize was about to possibly go out of existence, that family stepped forward. And with the encouragement of people like former Senator Elaine Simoniak and the Des Moines Register and Tribune and the Des Moines Partnership, the Ruan family rescued the World Food Prize, and it wouldn't be here today without them. And all the members of the Ruan family who are here, Betty Ruan, Janice Ruan, and others, please join with me in thanking them so much for what they've done. Now, the Symphony has summoned one more hero tonight to be with us, and that is our 2001 World Food Prize laureate. And because this is the 15th anniversary, we have a special laureate presentation committee who I want to introduce to you now, all people who have been associated with the prize and have started it and kept it going. Dr. Robert Havener, member of our Council of Advisors, past president of Windrock International, and served as the first secretariat for the prize. Lieutenant Governor Sally Peterson, representing all the support we've received from the state of Iowa. Mr. John Ruan III and Mr. John Ruan, the leaders of the Ruan family, and who have been the real heroes. And John Ruan Sr. has just received the Iowa Prize. Our state's highest honor, Nobel Peace Prize laureate, Dr. Norman E. Borlaug, the man who inspired the prize. The chairman of the 15th anniversary, former Governor Robert Ray, who has led the state in its concern for hunger and malnutrition. Mr. Al Clossy, who was present at the creation when the Food Prize was there representing General Foods, what you saw in the video. Dr. Pekka Linko of Finland, who has been on the Council of Advisors since the first day the prize existed. And representing the Smithsonian Institution, that was the first secretariat and hosted the first World Food Prize 15 years ago, Dr. Irma Hightower, the Director of National Programs. But now it's time to meet our new World Food Prize laureate.
In June 1995, some 500 researchers, policymakers, donors, and development workers from around the world came together in Washington, D.C. to discuss the urgent problems of hunger, poverty, and environmental degradation. They were brought together by the initiative, vision, and passion of one man, a man who told this assembled gathering that the tremendous successes of the Green Revolution had lulled world leaders into a false sense of food security and obscured the looming problems facing the world in the 21st century.
The world has won important battles in the area of food security, but the war has not been won. Failure to take appropriate action now may result in a loss of future battles. And believe me, many more battles must be fought.
This man was driven by the human suffering still afflicting close to 1 billion people in the world, the majority innocent women and children.
It is a disgrace that every third child in developing countries is currently malnourished. This child doesn't grow to its full potential. It's a terrible human misery, and if we choose to do something about it, we can.
What has emerged following that meeting in Washington is the most comprehensive and ambitious research and dissemination program ever undertaken on global food security, aiming to eradicate hunger and malnutrition by the end of the second decade of this century. The 2020 Vision for Food, Agriculture, and the Environment was designed and implemented by our 2001 World Food Prize laureate. His work has been hailed as a brilliant catalyst for policy change, which jarred the international community out of the complacency prevalent a decade ago, and which has already led to improvements in the health and well-being of millions of people. But then, our laureate has been fighting battles against hunger and malnutrition throughout a career spanning over 30 years. Born in Denmark, Per Pinstrup-Andersen's life story is an inspiring tale of great personal struggle and exceptional accomplishment. Growing up on a farm in the Danish countryside, he learned hard work at an early age. He left school after the 7th grade and labored as a hired farm worker until age 18, when he was drafted into the Danish Defense Forces. After completing military service, he returned to his life as a farm laborer. But compelled by a deep desire to somehow make a greater contribution in the world, Per Pinstrup-Andersen then turned his life in a new direction. Determined to gain entry to the university, he first attended preparatory school and achieved his goal when he was admitted to the Danish Agricultural University. There he sought and received a bachelor's degree in agricultural economics. But greatly moved by the enormous imbalances he saw between prosperity and poverty in the world, Per continued his quest to acquire the skills necessary to confront these problems, earning master's and doctorate degrees from Oklahoma State University. After initial assignments in Colombia, the United States, and back home in Copenhagen, he accepted the position of research director at the International Food Policy Research Institute. IFPRI, as it's known by its acronym, is one of the 16 future harvest organizations coordinated by the Consultative Group on International Agricultural Research of the World Bank. Per found a home there, and as he rose to become Director General, he became immersed in the research on policy change that would bring him world acclaim. Per Pinstrup-Andersen understood that government policies are much like a road. Improved farm-to-market roads can transform a rural economy, uplifting villages and improving livelihoods. But bad policy, like a narrow and unpaved road, can keep food from markets in cities where people are most in need. Through his research at IFPRI, Per Pinstrup-Andersen demonstrated that you need good roads and good policy to improve people's lives. Throughout his career, Per has approached world hunger within this comprehensive conceptual framework. He has researched and studied not only the policymakers, but also the poor in need of food and the farmers who supply them. The result is over 300 studies that point out policy alternatives that may open the road to food security. But the crucial question for all policy advocates is this: do their ideas and proposals translate into action? Into more people having access to more and better food? It is here that our laureate has left his mark on the world. Working closely and effectively in partnership with senior government officials, in case after case, Per Pinstrup-Andersen's research has directly led to change. Change that has removed the policy roadblocks that were keeping food from those most in need. Studies on the rationing of wheat and sugar in Pakistan showed that the system inadvertently helped perpetuate poverty. With Per's input, policymakers in Pakistan elected to reform the rationing system, allowing additional areas for savings in government wheat storage, with economic benefits flowing to the poorest segments of society. In Bangladesh, research initiated by Per Pinstrup-Andersen led to privatization of the fertilizer industry, ultimately increasing that country's grain production by 30% and leading Bangladesh to become an exporter rather than an importer of grain. And reforms in the rice rationing system resulted in more access to nutritional food for millions and opened the way for the Food for Education program that encouraged children in rural areas to stay in school. Today, Dr. Pinstrup-Andersen's efforts are directed toward fulfilling his 2020 Vision Initiative. Described by some as the next green revolution, this endeavor has already brought renewed attention to development issues by world leaders. This, in turn, has resulted in positive changes in the levels of development assistance being provided by donor nations, and real reductions in global levels of hunger and child malnutrition. Its impact has also been felt directly in Uganda and Malawi, which faced the specter of widespread famine. IFPRI research greatly assisted these governments to improve their capacities for implementing relief distribution, thus avoiding mass starvation. And in Vietnam, Colombia, Mozambique, South Africa, and other countries, the 2020 vision has contributed to debate and consequent policy change, increasing food production and achieving better access to food by the poor. Will the 2020 vision succeed in completely eliminating hunger and malnutrition?
The goal can be achieved. There's absolutely no question about it. Will we achieve it by year 2020 or by year 2030? Depends again on how much effort we choose to put on this. What we need to do is to decide that we no longer want malnourished children in this world.
It's a daunting problem we face, a very serious challenge, no question about it. But if we have foresight, we can succeed. If we face the problem and tackle it aggressively, I am hopeful, even optimistic, that the skills and the talents of dedicated research scientists and policymakers will come together for the sake of tomorrow's children.
While it may be too early to predict the ultimate impact of the 2020 vision, one thing is certain. Today, millions of people around the world have greater access to nutritious food because of the achievements of our laureate, a man who rose from being a farm laborer in the Danish countryside to the leadership of a great global effort to ensure adequate food for all, and end the suffering of malnourished children. For his lifelong commitment to uplifting those most in need, and for his immense contribution to world food security, Dr. Per Pinstrup-Andersen is truly deserving to be named the 2001 World Food Prize Laureate.
Ladies and gentlemen, the 15th Anniversary World Food Prize Laureate, Dr. Per Pinstrup-Andersen.
It's our great pleasure to present to you on behalf of the Ruans, Dr. Borlaug, and everyone with the World Food Prize Foundation, this 2001 World Food Prize Laureate Award. You go back. We'll just leave it here.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Quinn. Ladies and gentlemen, I am grateful and deeply honored to have been selected to receive the 2001 World Food Prize. I join a group of laureates whose contributions have made the world a better place and for whom I have the greatest respect. The World Food Prize draws attention to the world's most critical problems: widespread poverty, hunger, malnutrition, and mismanagement of natural resources. The resulting human misery and hopelessness provide a foundation for international instability, including that which caused the horrible terrorist attacks on September 11. I believe the World Food Prize will present me with new opportunities to influence action that will help eliminate such human misery and hopelessness. And I will use such opportunities to the best of my knowledge, or to the best of my ability. This year's World Food Prize recognizes the importance of government policy, policy research, and effective communication of research results to achieve sustainable food security for all. The combination of appropriate technology and appropriate policies is key to achieving this goal. During my professional career, I have been helped tremendously by mentors and others who have given me opportunities to excel. During my professional career, I have also been fortunate to work with outstanding colleagues and collaborators, and much of the recognition associated with this year's World Food Prize must go to them. I thank all of those that I have been in contact with, that I've been fortunate to work with. They have meant so much to me and to my career. I want to thank John Ruan and the Ruan family. I want to thank Norman Borlaug, the selection committee, and Ambassador Quinn and his colleagues for giving me this recognition and for making this week so enjoyable. Last but most important, I'm grateful to my wife, Birgit, who during more than 36 years has shared her love and friendship while providing unconditional support to me in my professional and personal endeavors. Thank you very much.
One of the most important goals of the World Food Prize and of Dr. Borlaug is to instill in our youth a sense of global hunger and the needs of the world. And for the past 6 years, we have done this through the World Food Prize Youth Institute. And this year, we have a record number. More than 70 Iowa high schools are participating. And we have with us here in the audience tonight those participants from the World Food Prize Youth Institute. And could I ask them to please stand, and would you join with me in recognizing them and welcoming them? And also here are their teachers. Could the teachers please stand up? Yes. Now, from this group of wonderful students, they are eligible now to compete for one of our international internships, a chance to spend 8 weeks in their summer abroad at an international research center in Kenya or Ethiopia, India, Philippines, Trinidad, Thailand, Mexico, Peru, working hand in hand with a research scientist. And of those international interns, we then choose 2 for special recognition. And tonight, to help with that recognition, please welcome Michael Gartner, my friend and member of our World Food Prize Council of Advisors. And also the star of World Food Prize TV, as you saw before. We have our first award is a new award, the Amundsen Intern Award, named in honor of a wonderful Iowa woman, Roberta Amundsen. I'm so sorry she can't be here tonight, but she has, and her family from Perry, never forgot where she was from. She came back home, and she has donated $160,000 to ensure that the World Food Prize Youth Institute can continue and operate. And this is our way of thanking her. I want you to take a look at this year's Amundsen Intern winner.
The World Food Prize interns from the summer of 2000 talked about their work at international research centers on Iowa Public Television's Student Voices. Several of the interns took cameras with them on their journeys and produced videos for the Student Voices program. Here are excerpts from those videos.
Research was started for the production of an Indian goat milk cheese. The process began when I learned that traditional goat rearers never milked their goats. Hopefully, it will provide a new avenue of livelihood for these small-scale farmers. Hard work and a new sense of community has created a new opportunity for these people to have enough food.
Ladies and gentlemen, Curtis O'Laughlin. Our second award is one that I know is very dear to the heart of John Ruan, to Michael Gartner, Governor Vilsack, myself, and everyone who knew John Crystal because of his great personal inspiration. And this is our top winner in the international interns. Please look at her work.
Water. Along the remote shores of Lake Victoria in western Kenya, there's plenty of it, and the abundant natural resources it has to offer have sustained the people of the lake region, the majority of whose livelihoods depend on the lake for fishing and subsistence agriculture. Yet, even with water so close by, there is still a drought. There's still a lack of food security due to many factors. Habari! This is where the International Center of Insect Physiology and Ecology, ISUPE, comes in. I worked with entomologist Dr. Ziar Khan under the Gatsby Project, a habitat management program. This project works on education and empowerment of the area farmers, introducing them to biological control of pest and weed infestation, or integrated pest management. Working with the local Ministry of Agriculture, we were to assess the influence of culture and gender on household food security and identify methods to help mobilize and empower the women in agricultural production. When most people think of Africa, they think first of the wildlife. And the exotic landscape. However, through my first-hand experience working at UCP, I was able to experience the real Africa, the people, especially those of Lake Victoria. Deep down, despite all the hardships they faced, there was still an inherent optimism within them. And with the current endeavors of UCP, there's great assurance that the land and the water will continue to sustain those who so vitally depend on it.
Ladies and gentlemen, Beyond Lee.
I'd like to tell you a couple of things, and since I have a microphone on, we'll let them listen too. The first thing is, when you come to a big event like this and there's 2,500 people, try not to fall down on the sidewalk outside like I did and rip your pants, because it's embarrassing to be standing here with a hole in your pants. The second thing is I want to tell you a little bit about John Crystal. John Crystal was a farmer and a banker and a politician and a statesman. He was a great citizen of Iowa, he was a great citizen of America, and he was a great citizen of the world. He didn't know all the answers, but he knew most of the questions. And in a time like this, when there's terror and uncertainty in the world, that's why we miss him most. He would at least know the questions to ask. So as you go through life, if you become an economist like you're thinking of becoming, or a statesman, or just a good citizen, just always look at this award and think about Crystal and say, what are the right questions? And if you know those questions as you go through life, you'll make a great, huge, crystal-sized contribution to society. So congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I would like to thank you all, and I am deeply honored and grateful for having received this award. And there are so many people that I would like to thank who have helped make it possible. In particular, Ambassador Quinn and everyone at the World Food Prize Foundation, my family, the Ruan family, Dr. Hans Herron and everyone at ISUPE, and Governor Vilsack and the state of Iowa government. But most important, I am most deeply indebted to the man whose vision started it all, the father of the World Food Prize and the father of the Green Revolution. A man who has saved more lives than any other human being on the entire planet. This man is my inspiration and hero. This man is native Iowan Dr. Norman E. Borlaug. And tonight we have a special ceremony to honor and recognize Dr. Norman E. Borlaug for his contributions to the world. Ladies and gentlemen, poet Michael Carey.
For Norman Borlaug. How like a farmer to work and work and work in fair and troubled weather, to keep listening to the land while everyone else is eating.
What more fitting way to honor a man that understands how to listen to the land than with a symphonic work commissioned by the World Food Prize Foundation. The Symphony to the Prairie Farm is a stunning musical tribute to the vanishing family farm and honors Dr. Norman Borlaug, all farmers around the world, and especially those in the rural Midwest, whose work for a sustainable food culture is essential. Composer Steve Heitzeg, who is present this evening and was born on a farm in Minnesota, uses chisel plow shovels, corn rattles, field discs, and plow mold boards, along with standard instruments to create sounds that are indigenous to the farm. Inspirations for this piece came from the Borlaug and Heitzeg farms and many, many others throughout the Midwest. Ladies and gentlemen, it is with great honor for the Des Moines Symphony Orchestra to perform the world premiere of the finale of Symphony to the Prairie Farm, titled Field Dances and Harvest Waltz.
Maestro Giunta, Steve Heitzeg, you have given us music for Dr. Borlaug and music for the world. Thank you so much. It's just magnificent. My dream is to take the Des Moines Symphony and Dr. Borlaug around the world playing Steve Heitzeg's music, but that's for another day. That was one world premiere, music never heard before. But we promised you, too, the debut of a wonderful documentary about Dr. Borlaug's life, produced by Pat Bodie Productions, and with the marvelous work of Iowa Public Television, Dan Miller, Tom Moore, everyone there who I've worked with on this. And I have such great respect and admiration for Iowa Public Television. And this video, if I could have one wish, it would be that the video you're about to see in its full production, you're going to see part 30 minutes, but that every school in Iowa and every student at Iowa in some time in their career before they get out of school would see this wonderful video. Please watch.
It is difficult to say how many lives Norman Borlaug has saved in his lifetime. We do know that for his work in reversing food shortages in Mexico, India, Pakistan, and more recently Africa, this plant breeder from Northeast Iowa received the Nobel Peace Prize. And though he's continued that work for these past 30 years, he is little known in his homeland. He was born in 1914 and raised near the northeastern Iowa community of Cresco, where his parents farmed and where he learned about dedication from his grandfather.
I think my granddad taught me to be a rebel. He said, don't be afraid.
These were valuable words coming from the beloved grandfather, words Nels Borlaug had likely said to himself as a child in northeastern Iowa. Today, we think of Iowa as the breadbasket of the world. But that isn't the picture Nell's family saw as newcomers to the state.
They came into a part which is swampy, essentially to the west of where his family settled, and which was hilly to the east of that area. And over a period of time, I think they would say that they essentially domesticated that land.
Norman Borlaug and his two sisters were born into a family that understood farming and the hard work it required. As young children, they lived and worked with their grandparents. They attended the nearby one-room school, where Borlaug learned early that people the world over shared some pretty basic needs.
Part of the students in this one-room school were of Norwegian descent and part of Bohemian. I learned early there that this ethnic thing was pretty artificial, that the basic values were pretty much the same.
In many ways, Borlaug learned determination, first on the knee of his grandfather, and later as a high school wrestler. He speaks of those high school days and Coach Dave Bartelma with near reverence. They taught him, he says, about his own strength and offered an attitude toward life and work that would serve him well for the next 7 decades.
He always used to say to all of his wrestlers, if you aren't willing to give your best, don't waste my time and the time of all of your classmates here. Give your best or get out.
Advice Norman Borlaug would heed as he went off to the University of Minnesota to wrestle and to pursue degrees in forestry and then plant pathology. A college experiment on rust spores, indicating they moved globally in sync with the harvest, awakened the young Borlaug to the possibilities of international work. Then, in the mid-40s, the young agronomist was offered a job with the Rockefeller Foundation. His charge was to alleviate the food shortages in Mexico. While Margaret made their home in Mexico City, Borlaug split his time between several research stations. He was dismayed by what he found.
When I arrived in Mexico, no trained people, nobody who knew how to do anything, no equipment. There'd been 3 disastrous stem rust epidemics. And when I moved into this area in Sonora, the farmers wouldn't talk to anyone labeled a scientist. I thought that I could never achieve anything.
True to form, Borlaug was dismayed, but not dissuaded. In the end, he was able to convince local farmers that he had something to offer, and in turn needed their help. And he did it all with what was, at that time, limited knowledge of the language. And it was in the field where Borlaug came to believe high-yield, disease-resistant varieties of wheat might be an answer to the agricultural problems in Mexico. The small plants, commonly referred to as semi-dwarf wheat, spent less energy growing tall stalks and more on growing grain. For the next 20 years, Borlaug and his team worked to improve the plants in test plots, crossing thousands of varieties at a time, working whenever the sun was up. Borlaug set the pace, moving through the rows on a little stool in his baseball cap, recording his data. The Green Revolution was underway. By the mid-1960s, with his Mexican program a success, Borlaug believed the semi-dwarf wheat could help feed a mushrooming global population. Millions faced possible starvation on the Indian subcontinent. And Borlaug thought high-yield agriculture might save lives, but it was a hard sell. The prospect of Indian and Pakistani peasant farmers and Western technicians working together disturbed the elite. But Borlaug kept pushing.
Someone asked me a year ago at a farmers' meeting, what was the toughest wrestling match you were ever in? And I said it was talking to the president of Pakistan when they were starving. And again a bit later to the Prime Minister of India. And I said, the stage is set, the technology is there, it's been proven, it's been tested, and now it's up to you. That was the biggest wrestling match I was ever in, and you're standing there alone on the edge of the mat against the most powerful person in the country. And yet you have to have the courage in the right way, at the right time, to say it like it is.
By the late 1960s, Borlaug felt like he was making progress toward that goal. Pakistan was self-sufficient in wheat production, and India was nearly there. Decades before, his grandfather had said, "Don't be afraid." And Borlaug had taken those words to heart. But in 1970, he received one of the world's greatest honors and one of his greatest challenges.
Come to the rostrum and receive the diploma and the gold medal of the Nobel Peace Prize for 1970.
Borlaug became the first person ever to win a Nobel Peace Prize for work in agriculture.
He is fond of saying how there was never anything in his background that you could have seen to predict the type of successful career that he has had. He tells you he was not a stellar student either when he was in high school or when he got into college. He tells you that as a breeder, his skills were not top-notch. It wasn't essentially what he started out to study to begin with, and he tells you that he really feels like he broke every rule that he'd been taught about plant breeding and nevertheless managed to be successful, mostly because he was just dedicated to his objectives.
How a young boy from a small town in the Midwestern United States could do something in his life out of just being himself that affects the lives of hundreds of millions of people. I believe that that gift is in each one of us. Those of us who live in this wonderful modern society in the United States, and I believe it lives in the heart and soul of those little tiny babies who are starving to death right now. For us to deny that gift is a sin.
Perhaps Borlaug is wrong when he He says there was nothing in his past that would predict his future. Perhaps that future was in the words of his grandfather when he said, "Don't be afraid." Maybe it was in the locker room where his coach said, "Give your best." And maybe it was in the dirt of that Iowa farm where Borlaug first experienced the spring and saw the earth come to life.
Ladies and gentlemen, the man of whom it is written, "He has already saved more lives than any other person who has ever lived," Dr. Norman E. Borlaug.
Okay. Can you get up there? Okay. The first thing everybody needs to know is that Norm doesn't know anything about this or what's about to happen at all. We've been keeping a secret from him. Sure. Norm, this is a party for you. And you've already, at a party, you know, you get presents. And you've already had a couple of presents tonight with a symphony, wonderful documentary. But we have some other presents, and I want to tell you about them. Now, you know, this year is the 100th anniversary of the founding of the 4-H movement in Page County, right here in Iowa. You know, it's even older than you, Norm. And it's the 100th year of the awarding of the Nobel Peace Prize. So the Iowa 4-H Foundation, in partnership with the World Food Prize, created a special Dr. Norman E. Borlaug Centennial Award, which has been presented to more than 200 4-H members who placed first in their class at the 2001 Iowa State Fair. And as Mr. Joe Kurth and Ashley Glade and Tom Foll of the state 4-H leadership present a copy of this award to you, Norm, let me ask that all the 4-H winners who are here tonight stand and be recognized. Good. Happy anniversary to you. Now, Norm, you've been closely associated with FFA, and you're currently serving as the honorary chair of the Iowa FFA Enrichment Center Capital Campaign. In recognition of your achievements and on the occasion of this 15th anniversary of the World Food Prize, the Iowa FFA is pleased to announce that the atrium area of the new Enrichment Center, and you see the picture here on the screen, has been specially designed to honor you, Norm, and the World Food Prize laureates, to provide inspiration and education to all who pass through it. And to provide a copy of you of the Enrichment Center design are Wayne Natras, Jesse Ulrich, and Amanda Dite. That's So turn around and get a picture. Yeah. Go, you stay up. It's all right, yes. You could give that to. There's going to be too many presents for you to hold all of them, Norm. So, now, this next present is something that's very dear to John Ruan's heart. And he knew that, Norm, when you were living outside the United States, that you wanted to be sure your family had access to some of the same experiences as if they were living in the U.S. And one of those experiences was scouting. And to ensure that there was a troop scout functioning, you became the volunteer scoutmaster. And in honor of that special role you played, Norm, and your unique accomplishments in terms of alleviating human hunger, the Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts of Iowa have both established special awards which can be earned by their members who fulfill requirements related to learning about the issues involved in global food security and your accomplishments. And we're pleased to have a number of Scouts and Scout leaders here with us tonight to honor the Scout Master who went on to save hundreds of millions of people. And this Scout Award, as I said, was inspired by our chairman, John Ruan, and here to present a replica of the Boy Scout Norman Borlaug World Food Prize, or A. Eli Brewer, Scout Executive, and David Cox.
David, thank you.
And to present the Girl Scout World Food Prize patch are Rose Braxton and Teresa McShell.
Thank you. Thank you.
I could see John smiling down there. Now, you know, Norm, there's a lot of laureates here who are very grateful to you because you created the World Food Prize to provide a cash prize to recognize Nobel-like achievement in food and agriculture. And the Rotary Club of Des Moines believes it's your turn to receive some cash. And so they're nominating you for the Rotary Award for World Understanding and Peace, which brings a $100,000 honorarium with it. And here to present you with a copy of their nomination is Luann O'Shea, the president of the Morning Rotary, and Sheila Tipton, president of the Downtown Rotary Club of Des Moines. I got to tell you a story that you may not know about Norm. He actually didn't really want to be here. He wanted to be playing second base for the Chicago Cubs. Right? Right? Yeah, see? But he wasn't able to fulfill that dream, but he has had Sammy Sosa-like achievements in terms of saving lives and lifting people out of poverty. And as a reminder of all the home runs you've hit, Norm, in terms of increased food production, here's Michael Gartner, the president of the Iowa Cubs, to present you with your own Cubs jersey with your name on the back. Michael, you hold it with him.
Hold it up. He told me he's going to give me a tryout this week. The second base.
Michael said he's going to give Norm a tryout. It's never too late. Yeah. Now, we also have some additional presents for you, Norm. And to present the next one is the newest member of the World Food Prize Council of Advisors, President of Iowa State University, Dr. Gregory Joffrey.
Thank you very much. It's a great pleasure for me to announce tonight a special gift for Dr. Borlaug. It's a gift from all Iowans presented through Iowa's institutions of higher education, both public and private. The gift is a series of Norman Borlaug lectures, seminars, and other academic activities to be presented on the campuses of Iowa's colleges and universities during October of each year, to coincide with the presentation of the World Food Prize. Many of Iowa's colleges and universities have already defined the event they will have, and I'm especially pleased to announce that beginning next fall, Iowa State University will host a Norman Borlaug lecture as the main event in a new week-long fall activity focusing on the nutritional sciences at Iowa State. The week is being organized by our Nutritional Sciences Council, which has been promoting educational programs and seminars in the nutritional sciences on the Iowa State campus for nearly 50 years. I want to thank the World Food Prize Foundation for developing the idea for a statewide series of Norman Borlaug lectures and activities at virtually every institution of higher learning in Iowa. I can't think of a more fitting tribute to one of Iowa's greatest world citizens. Thank you.
Turn around and get a picture. Now, Norm, you remember when you were just starting the World Food Prize and you didn't have a place to hold the symposium and the ceremony. That's right. And the Smithsonian Institute came forward and they hosted it. And here, representing the Smithsonian Institute, is Dr. Herma Hightower.
Ambassador Quinn, Dr. Borlaug, the Smithsonian Institution is profoundly grateful and extremely proud to have been a founding partner of the World Food Prize. The Smithsonian, as you've mentioned, hosted the first symposium in 1987, and for 4 years, we were the site for the celebration and presentation of the World Food Prize to your selected laureates. We are extremely pleased to see how the prize has grown over the past 15 years and to see the impressive array of laureates who have been honored. What you have inspired and what we started together has truly grown into a special recognition known the world over as the most significant prize for food and agriculture. But Dr. Borlaug, I must tell you one thing. We at the Smithsonian miss you. Since you and the World Food Prize moved to Iowa, thanks to the support of John Ruan, the Ruan family, my friend Elaine Zimoniak, we don't see enough of you anymore. Now, I know you can't move back to Washington because the World Food Prize has a home here in Des Moines. And the World Food Prize belongs in the food and agriculture capital of the world, the American Midwest. And so, if you can't move back to Washington, as Director of National Programs, it was my mission to find a way to bring the Smithsonian to you. And so I am pleased to announce tonight that the Smithsonian Institution will enter into discussions with Ambassador Quinn with the goal of making the World Food Prize Foundation an active participant in our National Affiliations Program, in which the Smithsonian provides loans of relevant artifacts. And by the way, we have 142 million of those from our collections to our partner organizations. Having been with you at the creation, we at the Smithsonian are hopeful that we can once again be your partner in the great endeavor to reduce and eliminate hunger and malnutrition in the world. Thank you, Dr. Borlaug, and happy anniversary.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so much. Won't you turn and get a picture? Yeah. I don't know. I think, Norm, we're on a roll. I was afraid when she talked about artifacts, she was talking about you, but next, I want to introduce the honorary chairman of the 15th anniversary celebration, a man who I admire enormously for all of his effort to reach out to starving people through things like the Iowa Shares program, former Iowa Governor Robert Ray, and with him are David Ullman, the executive director of the Iowa Child Institute, and Representative Scott Racker of Character Counts.
Dr. Borlaug, as honorary chair for this 15th World Food Prize anniversary celebration, I'm enormously pleased to see that you're being honored in this fashion tonight. I'm also delighted that two organizations that I chair have determined that they, both of them, wish to honor you to ensure that your achievements will be well known to future generations. First, the Iowa Child Institute, which envisions creating an environmental learning and conference center and rainforest in Coralville. It will greatly enhance the understanding of students and teachers about the importance of preserving the biodiversity of our planet. David Oman, Chief Administrator for this effort, and I am very pleased to announce tonight that the Iowa Child Institute will name a symposium meeting hall in honor of you. Every person who comes to this facility will leave having been exposed to your exceptional legacy. David? In all fairness, you'll get a bigger one later. Also, Dr. Borlaug, I chair the Institute for Character Development, which has as its cornerstone a wonderful effort known as Character Counts. It is currently being practiced in more than 200 of our Iowa schools. Character Counts instills in students what we call the 6 pillars of character: trustworthiness, respect, responsibility, fairness, caring, and citizenship. It's not a curriculum, it's not a course, it's a way to live. It provides a learning environment where teachers can honestly teach and kids can learn. It's my pleasure to ask Representative Scott Racker, the Executive Director of our Institute, to join me as we present to you, Dr. Borlaug, the Pillar of Character Award, the highest honor that Character Counts can bestow upon a person. Not only does this award recognize your achievements, but it will also serve to incorporate the example of your life into the Character Counts initiative so that all students will have a sterling role model to emulate. Congratulations. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Come around and have a picture with me. Thank you. Step up so we can get a picture. When you were governor, you always, went to the camera a little better. I don't know. You must be losing a step here. That was my. That. Yeah. No. Oh, there's more, Norm. There's more. That's. Next, we have a distinguished delegation from state government. Lieutenant Governor Sally Peterson, Senate President Mary Kramer, Senate Minority Leader Mike Gronstal, and House Minority Leader Richard Myers.
Dr. Borlaug, I know that Governor Vilsack is extremely disappointed that he could not be here tonight to honor you in person. He asked me to convey to you and to the Ruan family and to Governor and Mrs. Ray his warmest wishes and those of the First Lady on this 15th anniversary of the establishment of the World Food Prize. In recognition of this special occasion, last week Governor Vilsack signed a proclamation making this Dr. Norman E. Borlaug World Food Prize Week. The governor did so because he wants all Iowans to know that in your life you have bridged the differences between many cultures, religions, nationalities to unite people in the common cause of countering world hunger and ending human suffering. We have seen tonight in the wonderful Iowa Public Television documentary how you connected farmers and scientists in Mexico and how you convinced India and Pakistan to pursue a common approach to agriculture. In these unsettling times, your work to bring people together for the common good becomes ever more crucial. Speaking tonight for all Iowans, we wish to express our respect, admiration, and affection, and to say that we are so proud to claim you as a fellow citizen of our state. Tonight, we celebrate the life of a boy who grew up on a farm in northeast Iowa, whose vision, passion, and commitment changed the world. Now, therefore, on behalf of Thomas J. Vilsack, Governor of the state of Iowa, I do hereby proclaim October 15th through the 20th, 2001 as Dr. Norman E. Borlaug World Food Prize Week in Iowa, and urge all communities in Iowa to take steps to recognize Dr. Borlaug and commemorate his achievements. Further, I call upon all educational institutions in the state of Iowa to take appropriate steps to ensure that Dr. Borlaug's achievements and its impact on humanity are known to all students so that the future generations of Iowans will appreciate the enormous contributions to mankind made by this Iowa hero and other World Food Prize laureates in the battle to alleviate world hunger.
Thank you very much, Charlie. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you all. Come around it. Thank you. Thank you.
One more, Norm. We have one more person to come out. And this person comes from a family that has, over the past decades, provided the leadership and provided support to this community, to this state. And this is a man representing John Ruan, Betty Ruan, and the Ruan family. John Ruan III.
Dr. Borlaug, Norm, to us Iowans perhaps, you've received some wonderful gifts tonight, but we would like to think that perhaps we saved the best for last. The World Food Prize that you created is a marvelous institution, so we think it needs to have a marvelous home, just like the Nobel Prize. There needs to be a place where great achievements of the World Food Prize laureates can be enshrined. There needs to be a place where future World Food Prize events could take place, where students could visit to learn about the accomplishments of the World Food Prize laureates, as well as Iowans of agriculture, great Iowans of agriculture, such as Henry Wallace and George Washington Carver. And Norm, most of all, there needs to be a place where everyone who visits will know what Norman Borlaug did, the breakthrough achievements of the great revolution that saved 1 billion lives. Dr. Borlaug, there will be such a place. My father and I are extremely pleased to be here to announce that, in conjunction with the Vision Iowa Fund, as a special gift to you, the Ruan family is committing $5 million towards the acquisition and refurbishment of the old Des Moines Public Library building so that it can become the future home of the World Food Prize.
Norm, that's all the presents, so I guess I mean, it's time for you to come over and say something.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Ambassador Quinn. I don't know how to begin to say thanks because of so many wonderful things that have been awarded to me tonight by so many different organizations, and having a symphony composed and played for the first time in my honor. To all of these organizations and to all of you present in the auditorium, I want to thank you. I would like to just take a few minutes and lead you through this wonderful walk of life that's been spread over 87 years. And it all started out in Howard County, in Chickasaw County, northeast corner of Iowa, 10 miles from Minnesota. I'm deeply indebted to all of not only my own family, the Borlaugs and the Valas and the Natviks, but also to the whole communities in which I was privileged to grow and develop, and for a wonderful home that I was privileged to live in, both the grandparental for the first 8 years, and then in the home where I grew up until I moved to the university. And I'd like to not only restrict my thanks to all the people of the state of Iowa and in many different organizations from that state, but also I would like to explain how I wandered a few miles north to the University of Minnesota. And it so happened that at that time, there was a little halfback, very fast, very shifty, by the name of George Champlin, who was playing on the varsity at the University of Minnesota. He was from Cresco, and he insisted, and he took me to Minnesota, despite the fact that I had committed to go to Iowa State Teachers College, where state of Minnesota. There was virtually no wrestling in Minnesota before Herb Upton, whom you saw in that video. He and I were classmates on the wrestling team in Minnesota. And he and I were taken by Champlin. And at that time, everything was pretty tough academically in sports. There were no scholarships given for athletics per se. And there was no competition, intercollegiate competition, in your freshman year. And you had to pass every course in your freshman year before you were eligible to compete as a sophomore. And both Upton and I I guess we won 8 out of 9 meets in Big Ten and Big Six competition, which was unheard of in Minnesota wrestling. And it so happened that at the end of that season, the wrestling coach, who was a part-time coach, a very well-known lawyer and financier, decided to leave wrestling. And lo and behold, we brought Dave Bartelma from Cresco High School, where he was my principal and my wrestling coach, to the University of Minnesota. And shortly after he arrived, he gave the light heavyweight Kyson Johnson and myself 2 bus tickets to go to parent-teachers meetings at night in different small towns around the state to put on a demonstration of professional wrestling and then high school wrestling. and from that came the wrestling program of the University of Minnesota. And it took a long time from that 1936. And I happened to referee the first state meets. I was a freshman wrestling coach when I was in graduate school. And last year, for the first time, Minnesota won the national collegiate athletics. But he came from, the coach came from Iowa. He came from the Dutch community not far from Des Moines. That's where he grew up. And he was the person who put strong discipline into me and always challenged me to do my best, to reach for stars. And to he and many other people along the trails of my educational path, especially Dr. Stakeman at the University of Minnesota, I'm greatly indebted. And let me say, all during these years, these 56 years that I've been involved in international agriculture, I suppose I've worked in 65 or 70 different nations of all types of government, communistic, socialistic, various degrees of democracy and military governments. All during that period, I was working for the people of those countries. And along all this long path, I had the great privilege and the honor of training, I don't know how many, certainly directly and indirectly, many thousands of young men and women, and had the satisfaction of seeing them become outstanding scientists. Two of them received the World Food Prize last year, but many others along the way, including the first one, Dr. Swaminathan, I learned to know when he was very young, and many of the others along the way. And just stop to think how international this is. I've mentioned that in my long trail across many different countries, in this long foreign career, I've met many kinds of people. I didn't understand the languages, but sometimes sign languages were sufficient, and you could communicate. And not the way you would like to if you were fluent in the language of these people. But I have found all people very similar. And the cultures are different, but if we can communicate, those barriers are not very hard to pass through. And now, talking specifically, and I know you're all standing and you're getting tired and bored.
Oh,
so let me just take a couple of other passes through the tall grass and the brush that I've been through. I started out a forester. I had the privilege of living and working for the U.S. Forest Service in different parts of the country when I was trying, among other things, to put together enough money to finish my university degree. But one assignment I particularly enjoyed, and I've carried the benefits of that with me and use it frequently in looking at the land resources and their proper use or misuse in other parts of the world. And that was when I was assigned to what was then the largest primitive areas in the lower 48 states, the Idaho National Forest along the middle fork of the Salmon River, the most isolated member of the Forest Service. in 1936 and 7. And along the way, I have maintained that interest in forestry and not only its value for production of paper and pulp and wood products, for construction, for fuel and cooking, but also for its indirect values as habitat for wildlife and the proper use of land. And it's been my philosophy that through the development of high-yield technology and its application in not just the varieties, but how to restore the soil fertility, proper rates and dates of planting, control of weeds and insects and pests, and then demonstrating in hundreds, yes, thousands of plots and farmers' fields. I suppose in the last 15 years in sub-Saharan African countries, and I want to point out here now that anything that I have ever accomplished in this world to improve food production and hopefully to help a bit in more equitable distribution of that food was the composite effect of large numbers of people, young scientists, some of them not so young, that I've had the privilege of working with and training, many government officials, but especially, and I say millions of small farmers that had the courage to take farmers that lived on 3 to 5 or at the most 8 acres of land with no tools other than frequently a hoe and a machete or a wooden plow pulled by oxen. And they had the courage to abandon the traditional ways once they saw that it was possible to change wheat production from, let's say, 7, 8, 10 bushels an acre in one jump to 75 or 100. It took courage. They've been living close to hunger and famine. And if something went wrong, they'd starve. But they saw the difference. Many were illiterate, most of them. Not in one country, but in many countries. And look what happened. And for those who sometimes don't understand the complexities of all of this land use, let me say that over the last 40 years, the improvements in production of cereals, all classes of cereals, has increased from about 800 million metric tons to 1,800,000,000. And to have achieved that change, most of it was achieved on very little additional increase in land. Had we not had the improved technology, we would have needed to have produced a harvest of 99, cultivated another 1 billion hectares of land. We didn't have it. We would have plowed up marginal land, cut down forests, destroyed wildlife habitats. So let's not be too hard on science and technology. And when I look at what life was like in the USA, there's a little book that I frequently show to students in lectures. And it's a pictorial review of life in the USA from right after the war between the states, 1865, up through the middle 1920s. And if you want to see what life was like in the major cities and the environment, when there was most of the traffic was horses and the consequent manure and the flies, and then you looked at the sewage, the way it wasn't collected, and the cinders, all along the streets, in the main cities. Made no difference. Chicago, New York, that's the way we were. Looked at the conditions of labor. Look at the life of the rural family, especially the mother. And we forget about this. We don't read history. I'm talking about the kind of history that permits us to evaluate the high standards of living that has been achieved by this country, Western European countries, our Canadian neighbors, and many other parts of the affluent nations. We forget about that. And consequently, we forget about the countries that have been left behind, the ones that many of you have spoken about tonight, those that are handicapped by lack of food, lack of public health, lack of potable water, the lack of sanitary conditions. We hear a lot of complaint about our environment. You should live in it. These countries. I've spent many years in it. I've been blessed, I guess, with good health. I've survived it. And in many countries, I've seen tremendous change. And finally, before I close, I would like to say two great leaders from this state. But I would like to mention Henry Wallace especially. The first foreign technical assistance program in agriculture to try to help a neighboring nation was the cooperative program by the Rockefeller Foundation and the Mexican government. I had the opportunity to join that program shortly after it started, and that led me into these 56 years of foreign service in agriculture. And Henry Wallace, when he was vice president-elect, was sent by President Roosevelt to Mexico to the installation of the new president, Avila Camacho, and the outgoing president, Lázaro Cárdenas and Martí Irigoyen, were the two land reformists who had divided the huge haciendas and distributed the land. But things weren't going particularly good, despite the fact that this land redistribution had gone. And so they invited Wallace to visit central Mexico, the old cultivated parts, and looked at the problems, and they requested assistance from the U.S. government. And Henry Wallace was fascinated by the challenge. You know, he was a great international personality. And but as he was returning to Washington, suddenly he realized that the reserve officers were being called up to active duty. You see, this was less than a year before December 7th, 1941. And so he realized that he could never get a bill through Congress to support this kind of thing, Governor Ray. And so you see, then he called the Rockefeller Foundation. He said, this request has come, and I think somebody should respond to it. And they did. From that first program have come these 16 international spin-off of these nurseries. And incidentally, that whole coordinating CGIAR, Center for International Agricultural Research, came to be about 4 months after the Nobel Award. This brought people together. It brought monies that permitted not just CIMMYT in Mexico, or the Rice Institute had already been formed, but the 15 others. So there was a payoff of a lot of different precedents to the peoples of the world that spun off from that. The last time I saw Henry Wallace was at the 50th anniversary gala in New York City of the Rockefeller Foundation's establishment. And I flew back from India. It was in the fall of the year, and I met him. And he always used to chide me. He said, "Why is an Iowa Farm Board working on a degenerate crop like wheat?" And so on this particular day, he said, yeah, I'll finish it up. And so on this particular day, he said, "Are you ever going to get that thing to fly in India and Pakistan?" I said, "Give me 5 more years. It's revving up. It's about to take off." In 5 years, he was gone. He was gone in 2. So he never had the chance to see this, but he was tremendously interested in it. And in closing, I don't know where he is, but the first Mexican farmer that had faith in our Rockefeller Foundation Mexican Government Cooperative Program, and he and his son are in the audience, Roberto Maury and his son, Dr. Javier. And they were the persons that the first intimate friends, their family, that I had in Mexico. And they came to see this too. Thank you. Thank you all very much. And in closing, I want to say one gene taken from one variety that created those dwarf wheats. That was not the only important part of those wheats, but it came from Japan. And that shows how clearly we are all international today. Thank you all, and God bless you.
Norm. Norm, it's a measure of how much you're loved. You are the only person in the world who could get an Iowa crowd to cheer for Minnesota winning the National Wrestling Championship. But Norm, once you lose him, he's gone, you know. Norm, over here. Norm. You know, you can talk about Minnesota all you want, but we know you're from Iowa, and we have one more present for you. I hope you're going to like it. Don't go away.
He's from Iowa, Iowa, state of all the land, joy on every hand. He's from Iowa, Iowa, that's where the tall corn grows.
He's from Iowa, Iowa, best in all the land, joy on every hand. He's from Iowa, Iowa, that's where the tall corn grows. From Iowa,
Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes the 15th Anniversary World Food Prize Award Ceremony. Thank you for coming, and we look forward to seeing you next year. Good night.